My mother-in-law tried to poison me at Thanksgiving dinner. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like something out of a movie, like I'm being dramatic or paranoid. But I'm telling you, it happened. And what's worse is that when her plan failed, she ended up destroying her own life in ways she never could have imagined. Let me start from the beginning because you need to understand the kind of woman Patricia is. From the moment my husband Daniel introduced me to her 5 years ago, she made it clear I wasn't good enough for her precious son. It didn't matter that I had a master's degree, a stable career as a hospital administrator, or that Daniel and I were deeply in love. In Patricia's eyes, I was the wrong ethnicity, the wrong background, the wrong everything. Daniel is her only child. His father died when he was 12, and Patricia never remarried. She poured everything into raising Daniel, and somewhere along the way, that natural mother-son bond twisted into something unhealthy. She didn't just love him, she possessed him. Every woman he dated before me eventually left because of her interference. She would show up unannounced at their apartments, call constantly, create emergencies that required Daniel's immediate attention. She sabotaged relationships with surgical precision. But I was different. I refused to be intimidated. When Patricia made snide comments about my cooking, I smiled and continued serving dinner. When she accidentally scheduled family events on the same days as our plans, I calmly suggested we reschedule. When she cried to Daniel about feeling abandoned, I encouraged him to spend time with her while maintaining our boundaries. I thought I was winning by not engaging in her games. I was wrong. The first year of our marriage was a constant battle. Patricia would call Daniel at 3 in the morning, claiming she heard noises outside her house. She'd tell relatives I was keeping Daniel away from family, painting herself as the victim. At our wedding, she wore a white dress and accidentally spilled red wine on my gown during the reception. My bridesmaids managed to clean it, but the message was clear. Still, I tried. God, I tried so hard to build a relationship with this woman. I invited her to lunch, sent her flowers on Mother's Day, included her in our holiday plans. Daniel saw my efforts and appreciated them, but Patricia only seemed to resent me more. Every kindness I showed her was met with cold suspicion, as if she was waiting for me to reveal my true, terrible nature. Then, 6 months ago, Daniel and I found out I was pregnant. We were overjoyed. We'd been trying for almost a year, and when that positive test appeared, we cried together in our bathroom, holding each other and dreaming about our future as parents. I was nervous about telling Patricia, but Daniel insisted she'd be thrilled to become a grandmother. He called her immediately, putting the phone on speaker so we could share the news together. The silence on the other end was deafening. It stretched for so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Patricia spoke, her voice tight and strange. "I see. Well, congratulations." Then she hung up. Daniel was hurt and confused. He called her back several times that day, but she didn't answer. For 2 weeks, we heard nothing. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. It was the longest Patricia had ever gone without contacting Daniel, and the silence felt ominous. When she finally reached out, she acted as if nothing had happened, chatting cheerfully about the weather and her book club. She didn't mention the baby once. As my pregnancy progressed, Patricia's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would stare at my growing belly with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sometimes it looked like hatred. Other times, it looked like grief. She started making comments about how pregnancy ruins women's bodies, how children destroy marriages, how Daniel's childhood had been so perfect when it was just the two of them. The venom in her voice was impossible to ignore. "Mom, you need to stop. Daniel told her during one particularly uncomfortable dinner. "We're excited about this baby, and your negativity isn't welcome." Patricia's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she reached for Daniel's hand. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm just worried. Your father and I struggled so much when you were born. I don't want you to go through that hardship. I'm only thinking of you." Daniel softened, and I bit my tongue. This was her pattern. Push, then cry, then manipulate. And it worked every single time. In October, Patricia called to invite us to Thanksgiving at her house. We usually alternated holidays between families, and this year was supposed to be with my parents. But Patricia insisted. She'd already invited Daniel's aunts, uncles, and cousins. She'd planned the whole menu. She wanted to celebrate what might be her last Thanksgiving as a family of two with Daniel. Whatever that meant. The guilt trip was masterful. "Please," she begged over the phone, her voice small and fragile. "I know I haven't been the most supportive about the baby. Let me make it up to you both. Let me show you I can be a good grandmother. I've already bought gifts for the nursery." Daniel looked at me hopefully. Despite everything, he loved his mother and wanted to believe she could change. I was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, and honestly just wanted peace. "Okay," I agreed. "We'll come." The relief in Daniel's eyes made me think I'd made the right decision. I called my parents to explain, and they understood. "Just be careful," my mother said quietly. "A leopard doesn't change its spots overnight." The days leading up to Thanksgiving were surprisingly pleasant. Patricia called Daniel regularly, chatting about recipes and asking if I had any food aversions due to the pregnancy. She even texted me directly, which she'd never done before, asking about my favorite desserts. I felt a cautious hope blooming in my chest. Maybe she really was trying. Maybe becoming a grandmother would soften her. Thanksgiving Day arrived cold and gray, with heavy clouds threatening snow. We drove to Patricia's house in the suburbs, Daniel humming along to the radio, his hand resting on my belly. Our daughter kicked against his palm, and he grinned. "She knows we're going to see Grandma. Let's hope Grandma behaves," I said, trying to keep my tone light. Patricia's house was decorated beautifully. She'd always had excellent taste, and today was no exception. Fall wreaths hung on the doors, and the scent of roasting turkey filled the air. Several cars were already parked in the driveway. Daniel's Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim, his cousins Beth and Marcus with their kids. This was going to be a full family affair. Patricia greeted us at the door wearing an apron and a bright smile. "There you are. Come in, come in. Daniel, help me with the turkey in about 20 minutes. And dear," she turned to me, "why don't you rest in the living room? You must be exhausted carrying my granddaughter around." It was the first time she'd acknowledged the baby positively. I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you, Patricia." The living room was warm and crowded. Aunt Carol immediately pulled me into a hug, gushing about the baby. The kids ran around playing, their laughter infectious. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely welcome in Patricia's home. Daniel squeezed my hand and headed to the kitchen with his mother. About 30 minutes later, Patricia emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of appetizers: stuffed mushrooms, bacon-wrapped dates, cheese, and crackers. She set them down on the coffee table and specifically handed me a small plate. "I made these mushrooms special, without the wine and with extra herbs. I know you're being careful about alcohol." I was touched by the consideration. "That's so thoughtful. Thank you." The mushrooms were delicious, rich, savory, with a slight earthy aftertaste that I attributed to the extra herbs. I ate 3 of them, chatting with Beth about baby names and nursery themes. Patricia watched me from across the room, that unreadable expression back on her face. Dinner was called about an hour later. The dining table looked like something from a magazine. Golden turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, stuffing, fresh rolls. Patricia had outdone herself. We all took our seats, said Grace, and began passing dishes around. I noticed Patricia had put a special plate in front of me. I made sure everything on your plate is pregnancy safe, she announced to the table. No soft cheeses, no undercooked anything. I've been reading all about pregnancy nutrition. Everyone praised her attentiveness. Daniel beamed at his mother, clearly thrilled by her apparent change of heart. I felt guilty for ever doubting her. Maybe I'd been the problem all along. Maybe I'd been too defensive, too quick to assume the worst. I took a bite of the turkey, then the stuffing. Everything was perfectly seasoned and delicious. But as I reached for the mashed potatoes, a strange sensation washed over me. My stomach cramped violently. The room tilted slightly. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked, noticing my expression. I don't feel well." The cramp intensified, spreading from my abdomen to my chest. My heart started racing, pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Sweat broke out on my forehead despite the comfortable temperature of the room. "Maybe you should lie down," Patricia suggested quickly. Too quickly. Pregnancy can cause all sorts of dizzy spells. But this wasn't a dizzy spell. Something was very wrong. My hands started trembling. Nausea rolled through me in waves. The faces around the table began to blur. "Daniel," I managed to whisper. "Something's wrong. Really wrong." He was on his feet immediately, his hand on my shoulder. "What kind of wrong? What are you feeling?" "My heart. It's racing. And my stomach." Another cramp doubled me over. Oh, God. The baby. That word, baby, changed everything. Aunt Carol, a retired nurse, pushed her chair back and came to my side. She pressed her fingers against my wrist, checking my pulse. Her face went pale. "Call 911, now. Her heart rate is dangerously high." The room erupted into chaos. Uncle Jim was on the phone with emergency services. Beth rushed to get me water. The children started crying, frightened by the adults' panic. And through it all, I saw Patricia standing completely still, her face frozen in an expression of shock and horror. But it wasn't the shock of witnessing a medical emergency. It was the shock of a plan gone wrong. "What did she eat?" Aunt Carol demanded. "Did she have anything different from everyone else?" "Just the mushrooms," Patricia said weakly. "The special mushrooms I made for her. Without wine." "Show me," Carol commanded. "Now." Patricia led her to the kitchen like a woman walking to her execution. Daniel held me as I struggled to breathe, my chest tightening with each passing second. The paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, though it felt like hours. They loaded me onto a stretcher, hooking me up to monitors, asking rapid-fire questions. "I'm 29 weeks pregnant," I gasped out. "Is my baby okay?" "We're monitoring her," the paramedic assured me, though his face was grim. "Your heart rate is 170. We need to get you to the hospital immediately." As they wheeled me out, I heard Aunt Carol's voice from the kitchen, sharp and angry. "These aren't regular mushrooms, Patricia." "What are these?" I found them. In the woods behind my house. I thought they were safe. I looked them up." "You fed her wild mushrooms during pregnancy? Are you insane?" The ambulance doors closed, cutting off the confrontation. Daniel climbed in beside me, his face white with terror. "Hold on, baby. Just hold on. Both of you." At the hospital, everything became a blur of tests and treatments. They pumped my stomach, administered activated charcoal, hooked me up to IV fluids. The baby's heart rate was monitored continuously. At one point, it dropped dangerously low, and a team rushed in to prep for an emergency C-section. I was terrified I'd lose her, this little girl we'd wanted so desperately. Please, I begged the doctors through tears. Save my baby. Please save my baby. They managed to stabilize us both. The toxicology report came back showing I'd ingested a significant amount of a mushroom species called Amanita phalloides, death caps, one of the most poisonous mushrooms in the world. In adults, they cause liver and kidney failure. In pregnant women, they can cross the placental barrier. I'd eaten 3 of them. You're incredibly lucky, the doctor told me 12 hours later, after the worst had passed. You got medical attention fast enough that we could counteract most of the toxin. Another hour, and we'd be having a very different conversation. Your baby seems to be okay, but we're keeping you both under observation. Daniel hadn't left my side. His eyes were red from crying, his hand clutching mine so tightly it hurt. My mother did this, he said, his voice hollow. She tried to kill you. We don't know that it was intentional, I said weakly, though I knew the truth. We both did. She made those mushrooms special, just for you. She handed them to you personally. She watched you eat them. His jaw clenched. She's done a lot of terrible things. But this is attempted murder. The police arrived that evening. They'd already been to Patricia's house, had already collected the remaining mushrooms, had already questioned her. She'd claimed it was an accident, that she'd been foraging for mushrooms as a hobby and genuinely believed they were safe to eat. She'd acted distraught, weeping about nearly killing her daughter-in-law and grandchild. But Aunt Carol had told them a different story. She'd found Patricia's computer still open in the kitchen, with browser tabs about mushroom poisoning, about which species were most toxic, about how quickly symptoms appeared. There were deleted search queries about pregnancy complications and miscarriage causes. Patricia had researched this, planned it. The mushrooms in the woods behind her house weren't death caps. She'd gone somewhere else to find them. We're treating this as attempted murder, the detective told us. The evidence is pretty damning. The targeted preparation, the research, the fact that she gave them specifically to you and to no one else. She'll be arrested as soon as the district attorney reviews the case. I should have felt vindicated, relieved, but mostly I just felt sad. This woman had hated me so much, had been so consumed by the thought of losing her son, that she'd tried to kill me and my unborn child. What kind of darkness must live in someone's heart to make that choice? Daniel was devastated. In one day, he'd nearly lost his wife and daughter, and had lost his mother in a different, permanent way. He blamed himself. I should have seen it. I should have protected you better. All those times she was cruel, and I just made excuses for her. This isn't your fault, I told him firmly. You couldn't have known she'd do something like this. No one could have. I stayed in the hospital for 5 days. The baby continued to look healthy, her heartbeat strong and steady. I was monitored for liver and kidney function, but miraculously, the quick medical intervention had prevented lasting damage. Every doctor who examined me said the same thing. I was extraordinarily lucky. Patricia was arrested 3 days after Thanksgiving. The local news picked up the story. Woman accused of poisoning pregnant daughter-in-law with deadly mushrooms. It became a sensation. The prosecutor called it one of the most calculated attempted murders he'd seen, disguised as a holiday dinner. The trial took 6 months to reach court. During that time, Patricia's lawyer tried to paint her as a confused older woman who'd made a tragic mistake, but the evidence was overwhelming. The search history, the fact that death caps don't grow in the area where she claimed to have found them, the witness testimony from Aunt Carol about how deliberately Patricia had prepared and served those mushrooms specifically to me. Daniel and I attended every day of the trial. I was heavily pregnant by then, just weeks from my due date. Seeing Patricia across the courtroom was surreal. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. She never once looked at me. Her eyes were always on Daniel, pleading and desperate. On the witness stand, she finally broke. "I just wanted my son back," she sobbed. "She took him from me. He was mine first. Mine." The prosecution asked her directly, "Did you intend to kill your daughter-in-law?" Patricia was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, "I just wanted her gone. However that happened." The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Daniel put his head in his hands. I felt our daughter kick hard against my ribs, as if she understood the gravity of the moment. Patricia was convicted of attempted murder and attempted feticide. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. "You violated the most sacred trust," he said during sentencing. "You invited a pregnant woman into your home, prepared food with your own hands, and tried to end her life and the life of her unborn child. The premeditation and callousness of your crime is staggering." Patricia was led away in handcuffs. She looked back at Daniel one last time. "I'm sorry," she mouthed, but her eyes were empty. Our daughter, Emma, was born 3 weeks later, healthy, perfect, with her father's eyes and my stubborn chin. Daniel held her in the hospital, tears streaming down his face. "She's here. You're both here. You're both safe." We never told Emma the full story of what her grandmother did. How could we explain that kind of hatred to a child? As she grew, we simply said, "Grandma Patricia lived far away and couldn't visit." It wasn't entirely a lie. The family fell apart after the trial. Some relatives blamed me, saying I must have done something to provoke Patricia. Others were horrified and cut off contact with her completely. Aunt Carol became a surrogate grandmother to Emma, showing her the love Patricia never could. Daniel went to therapy for years, processing the betrayal and the guilt. He wrote his mother one letter in prison, telling her he forgave her but could never have a relationship with her again. She wrote back dozens of times, but he never opened another envelope. As for me, I sometimes still have nightmares about that Thanksgiving. I wake up gasping, my hand on my stomach, reliving that moment when I thought I'd lose everything. Daniel holds me until the fear passes, whispering that we're safe, that she can never hurt us again. Patricia will be eligible for parole when she's 73. Emma will be 20 by then, an adult who can make her own choices about whether to know the grandmother who tried to prevent her existence. I hope by then Emma is strong enough, confident enough, loved enough that nothing Patricia says can touch her. People ask me if I hate her. I don't. Hate requires energy I won't give her. Mostly I feel pity for a woman so consumed by possessiveness that she destroyed her own life trying to control her son's. She lost everything, her freedom, her family, her son, because she couldn't accept that love means letting go. Sometimes I think about that moment at Thanksgiving when Patricia handed me the plate of mushrooms, watching me eat them with that strange expression on her face. I wonder if even then, some part of her knew she was crossing a line she couldn't uncross. I wonder if she hesitated. I'll never know. What I do know is this. Emma is 4 now, bright and funny and kind. She has Daniel's laugh and loves drawing pictures of our family, Mommy, Daddy, her, and the new baby brother on the way. Yes, we're expecting again. After everything, We chose hope. We chose to keep building our family, to not let Patricia's darkness win. Last week, Emma drew a picture of a house surrounded by flowers. "This is our happy place," she explained, "where the mean things can't get in, out of the mouths of babes." Daniel framed that picture and hung it in our kitchen. Every time I look at it, I'm reminded that we survived. That love, real love, not the twisted, possessive kind, but the kind that nurtures and protects and lets go when necessary, that kind of love always wins in the end. Patricia tried to poison me at Thanksgiving dinner. Her plan backfired in every possible way. I'm alive. My children are alive. And she's the one who ended up destroying the relationship she tried so desperately to preserve. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well and loving freely, despite everything someone tried to take from you. And that's exactly what we do, every single day.